Welcome back, everybody, to the Hounds podcast. On this episode, we're going to dive back into some more with Elite Nutrition. We didn't quite have enough time to get everything into one episode on the last one, and plus, it was a good dividing point where we could take and talk about some of the expecting mother, puppy products in this episode versus trying to cram it all into the last episode. So Mr. Chip Kosher is going to be with us again on this episode. If you are watching on YouTube, forgive me, I forgot to put a hat on. Yes, I know it does not look right. So sorry about that. I don't even like it. But anyway, for this episode, like I said, we're going to dive back into Elite. I know these episodes are not what everybody may be dying to listen to, but they are super important. There's a lot of good stuff that you're going to get out of these episodes, especially this one coming up. I learned a lot, actually, just sitting down with Chip and recording with him. I definitely learned a lot, especially on some of the care and maintenance for the puppies and stuff like that. So I hope everybody enjoys this episode and enjoyed the last episode. Before we get back into this, I do want to go ahead and do a couple little things. We're going to do our motivational quotes and Bible verses, and something I wanted to kind of touch base on. And I think it's this month. It may have been last month, or maybe it was a week. I can't remember. But I've seen a lot of stuff on Facebook popping up, and it's I do believe, I'd have to Google search, but I believe it's men's mental health month or something like that. And I'm not a huge advocate on that kind of stuff. I'm very old school with my mentality on how I think, but I also do believe that keeping a positive attitude, keeping a strong mental health about yourself, that goes for not only just men, it goes for everybody across the board, is very important. And I think it's becoming more important throughout this world, for the sheer fact of it is a lot of stuff that is out there to put people down. There's a lot of stuff that's presented to an individual every day, whether it be social media, whether it be people, news, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of stuff that are out there to put you down and drag you down. And I think keeping not only your mental health alive and in good health and in good stability, I think that's important, along with keeping your spirit right. I'm not the best Christian in the world, and I will constantly tell you that, but it's something that I do strive for to better improve on myself every day. I know my language is probably the worst scenario that I have to correct, but I'm hoping that these just little quick bursts right here before these episodes really kind of speak to some people. And I'm going to take this whole month. I didn't think about it last week before I made the episode, but the rest of the month, on all the episodes for this month, is going to be centered around the idea of mental health and spiritual health. I think that's just it's a prime time to go with that. So this week's motivational quote is going to be, "The strongest men are not the ones who show no emotion, but those who feel deeply and can choose to still be brave." There was no author on that one, and I'm actually going to do two because I got two right here in front of me, and I really thought this one was pretty powerful as well. This one says, "You don't have to struggle in silence. You can be unsilent. You can live well with mental health condition as long as you open up to somebody about it." Like I said, I'm not one of those, I'm going to talk about it every day kind of people, but I think as a man, that's something that needs to be okayed. And I hope maybe somebody listening takes a few seconds and, find somebody to talk to if you got something going on. As men, we always tend to bury it, and I feel like I'm the same way. But if you have something going on that needs to be expressed, needs to be talked about, you need to find somebody, whether it be a friend, whether it be a help, or whatever needs to happen. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. It's okay. And I pray for everybody out there. I hope everybody that is going through something in their life, I hope they're able to find peace with it and go and continue on with making themselves better each and every day. And our Bible scripture for the day is going to be out of Matthew 6:34. And I feel like this one kind of went along with the last one. It's one of the main reasons I wanted to touch on it. It says, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Like I said, that's out of Matthew 6:34. So I know I went on a little bit of a sidetrack there, so I do apologize for that, guys. I just felt like it was needed. Something was telling me I needed to do this for this episode. So hope everybody had a great week. We're going to get back into this episode. It's going to start off a little different. If you want to know more about Chip and Elite, go back and listen to the other 3 episodes that we have done with them. And you can learn more. Again, don't forget our products, and you'll find the commercials in this episode. And if you listen faithfully, like I hope you all do, I hope that you can you go back and find everything you need. And don't forget our promo code, which you'll have to listen to the episode to get. All right, guys, here we go. We're going to get right into it. Let's get this thing going. Drop the gate. Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds Tales podcast. This is your home for field trialing and deer dog hunting. It'll be stories and discussions on the world of dog hunting. So let's drop the gate, cast your hounds, and get ready for another episode of the Hounds Tales podcast. And one more quick thing before we get started here. This program that I use is beyond a pain in the butt. Now, y'all seen a couple times where I've had to either delay an episode or do something a little off the wall with an episode just because the program is, let's just be frank, it's stupid. I'm trying to work on maybe finding a better product to use because this has become completely unreasonable. So I need to make a quick adjustment on this episode. There will be no ads on this episode. I know some of my listeners are like, hey, no ads, blah, blah, blah. But I do want to apologize to my sponsors, to my partners, that there will be no ads on this because all the files that I use apparently have timed out, and they're too old and unable to access right now. I'm supposed to be restoring them and getting them back up and running. This is partially my fault for waiting until the night before release date to get it edited and put together. But, so this one will be no ads. So I want to do a quick shout out to all the partners. That would be Outdoor Dog Supply, Cajun Lights, Elite Nutrition, Southern Hound Hunting, and Low 10 Outfitters. Thank y'all so much for your support. I do apologize for the no advertisements in this episode. And I'm going to try to work on something, make it up to y'all. So, but anyway, enough about all that kind of stuff. Good luck. Not good luck. Thank y'all, everybody. And now let's get back to the episode. Let's roll into, we're going to, all right, so, this is part 2 of our episode. And we're going to get into the broods, the puppies, the breeding, all that kind of stuff.
I'm glad you said breeding because so many hound guys, they say puppy care and they forget that starts with the bitch. That starts a long time before those puppies are born. It starts sometimes before she's even bred.
Right. So I'm going to let you kind of take the reins on which direction we go. I think probably starting, like you said.
We're going to start at the beginning and we're going to work through until those pups are ready to go on.
Let's do it. So
first and foremost, guys, and this isn't going to be an all elite podcast. This is going to be common sense on breeding podcast. You should not be the guy that is posting on Facebook, I've got a bitch coming in heat next month. Does anybody have a male 50 miles around that I can breed to?
Right.
If you're trying to breed champion dogs, you need to sort, find, and look for your lines that you want to breed. If you're not doing your own line breeding, you want to be breeding best to best, or you want to have that well planned out, not get on Facebook whenever she starts bleeding.
That is,
and I see a lot of that.
So glad you said it. So glad you said it, man. It's an art to breeding. There's reasons that you see dogs bred to other dogs. Like, people are wondering, how come this guy can make a champion so fast, or how come this guy always had good dogs? And it's like you said, it's because he doesn't just breed whatever to whatever. Just because they have a CH in front of the name and your dog has a CH in front of his name does not mean that putting them two together is going to make another CH.
Absolutely. I was out in New Mexico last July for a horse, hound, and mule auction. And obviously the horses were horses and the mules were mules, but the hounds, they were primarily lion dogs.
Right.
And a man got $50,000 for an unregistered, mixed up lion dog because the right guy bred it.
I need to go take a trip down there and start selling some stuff. So
you know what I mean? The reason it was not a register, they don't care about registries at all out there. They just want a dog that will hunt. Yep. And it was the right guy that was breeding that dog because he's had generation after generation and generation of doing his breeding, and it's working, and he has good dogs.
Right.
You look at what, for you guys that pay attention, what the Randy Smith's doing with the Lone Pine dogs. He's one of the few guys. Scott Engel is another one with the Mojo dogs. They're breeding their dogs and they're winning with their dogs, but it's not just one line. They've got multiple lines on their property. You know what I mean?
Right.
They are putting thought into their breeding program.
Yep. There's a reason behind it.
Exactly right. It isn't just because they have more money than the other guys. It's because they actually have a breeding program and aren't posting on Facebook, I've got a bitch coming into heat. Does anybody have a dog 20 miles from me, or whatever the case?
Exactly.
So the other thing is, let's talk about cycling.
Yes.
Females will not cycle if they're not going to be able to be good moms. I mean, typically speaking, you're going to have less. I'm not saying all cases, but a healthy dog is going to have a better success rate at getting pregnant than an unhealthy dog. You need to be looking at your body condition of your dogs. And I know a lot of you guys have 40, 50 dogs, whatever, but you need to pay attention to that body condition. If your dog, if you look over that dog's back, it should look like an hourglass. I don't care if you see the back ribs, but you shouldn't be seeing the front ribs. You shouldn't be seeing the backbones. You shouldn't be seeing the hip bones. Those dogs are not going to be good mamas because they don't even have the nutrition for themselves, yet alone for a litter of puppies.
Right.
The other thing is light. This is something that people totally miss. Your dogs need to have 13 hours of light, whether it be natural or artificial, to cycle regularly. So I get into this a lot of times with dogs. You'll notice a lot more dogs have a harder time cycling in the winter than they do in the summer, and that's because guys are not using artificial light in their kennels in the winter months.
Makes sense.
We don't live in Alaska.
Right.
Or, we don't live where there's 24 hours of sunlight. You know what I mean? Whenever your night days get shorter, we need to be using artificial light.
And you don't hear many people talk about that. Like, that's not something that many people talk about. I've heard that maybe once or twice in my lifetime about sunlight, and that goes both ways. Just overall health. Too much sunlight can be a terrible thing, and not enough sunlight is a terrible thing.
I'll tell you a funny story. Whenever I first came back to work for Joy in 2017. My prior experience with Joy as a distributor was much more on the hunting dog side and not on the breeding side. And when I came back to Joy, they were pretty heavy in the dog breeders that are breeding puppies for a living, not a hound guy breeding puppies.
Yeah. Right.
And so I was at an Amish guy's kennel in South Whitley, Indiana, and he was having cycling issues on his Great Danes.
Okay.
He had just bought the property. The property was set up for some sort of spaniel, not for Great Danes.
Right.
Weren't cycling. It was wintertime. And
right.
I was relative. So I'm not. I'm never going to be the guy. And if you guys, I'm not going to be the guy that knows everything. If I don't have an answer, I'm going to get to the source that's going to have the answer. I'm not going to be so proud that I can't ask questions. So right. I called up Dr. B from Revival Animal Health at the time. His real name's Dr. Bramlage. And I said, Dr. B, explained the situation to him. And he went through and he said, exercise and sunlight. One, those kennels probably are not big enough for a Dane, so they're not getting enough exercise. So that's something you guys, if you guys are not using that female and she doesn't have enough run space, she's not going to cycle well.
Yep.
And then he said sunlight. Well, at that time, and this was an Amish guy that was not from a community where they have solar panels and all that jazz. He's, you know what I mean? So it was he had to figure out a way within his rules to get that artificial light on his dogs in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And I said, so sunlight and exercise. And at that, my wife and I, we were not able to have kids. And we've accepted that now, but that was years ago. And I called up Jody on the phone. I said, hey, hon, if you want to get pregnant, Dr. B said, get out and shovel the snow in the sunshine, and you might get pregnant. That didn't go over so well.
I was going to say, I bet that didn't end very well for you.
No. No.
I probably would have said the same thing, though.
Yeah. So those are things that have nothing to do with elite nutrition that you guys need to be cognizant of as far as cycling issues. The other thing is nutrition, and that's where even if you're feeding a lousy dog food, use that essential dog, because I can promise you vitamins and minerals are just as important as protein, fat, and calories for breeding females. Making sure that they're got the right amount of calcium, the right amount of phosphorus, the right amount of folic acids. We want to make sure those vitamins and minerals are balanced, because they need to have those in order to, one, get through the whelping process, but also to be able to help those puppies develop in the womb.
That makes sense.
A lot of times your crooked-legged dogs and all that stuff is because of calcium deficiency.
Right.
Whenever a dog whelps, calcium is what forces those contractions. So if they don't have enough calcium in their body, they'll pull calcium clean from their bones.
Right. Right.
You know, that's
a lot to it. Yeah.
So the essential dog is if you're not feeding don't have a good feeding program, that essential dog can balance out and making sure that nutritionally the dog has what it's needed. And again, those protein, fats, or the proteins and fats and calories are important, but the vitamins and minerals are just as important for a breeding female and for your stud dog as far as fertility goes.
Right.
Then we mentioned on the last episode about the thyroid. So if everything else is perfect and she's still not cycling, and a lot of times if she cycles and she doesn't catch, that's where the thyroid can help and get that dog to cycle and catch, because we're getting all those systems working correctly.
Right.
Another thing that we do have for the studs is a product called Spike.
Okay. I've seen that, and I wasn't 100% sure what that was.
So that is for dogs that don't really show interest. And I don't understand this. A lot of times when I'll do meetings, we go through the horse products and the dog products, and we'll also mention our human products. I'll go through, and I'll be like, the Pure Balance is like the Rebalance, and I'll get to the Spike, and I said, and the human product, we don't have a human product, because there's never been a male alive that isn't interested in the female in front of him.
Right.
But for some reason, there's dogs out there that are more interested in the birds than they are the female in front of them, and that's to give him that focus and that interest. And then the other thing is, if it's one that you're breeding all the time, it's going to give them stamina.
Okay. Gotcha.
Obviously, essential dog is going to be key too, as far as those vitamins and minerals. But if you have a dog that is having semen count issues, I'll be honest, Revival Animal Health has a product called Oxy Stud that's really good at increasing your semen count. We don't have a product necessarily to increase semen count, but the Oxy Stud from Revival Animal Health is very good at that.
Gotcha. And as far as the spike goes, what's that ratio that you're feeding, that you're giving it to? That's
You're
like
doing
a
it
pace,
3 times a day, and it's based on the dog's weight. So you'll have to look
Okay.
at the label based on the dog's weight. But I mean, it's 1 5-pack is going to be enough unless you've got a dog that you're breeding
every day. Yeah.
Every day that you're getting, one of those ones that has won something that you're getting he's retired and you're getting stud fees for all the time.
Right.
It's got to be enough for that one stud dog to get them through what you're trying to do with them.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So now we got the female ready to be bred. And with hounds, it's not a big issue. But ovulation days is an issue, and you know how you talk, a lot of guys will breed every other day or every day, whatever. But if you're having an issue where you have a female that you're doing everything by the book, and she just doesn't seem to be catching, or she doesn't seem to be having big litters,
right.
Get yourself an ovulation test done. That's something we can do for you. It's $25. Your local vet, I don't know what it's going to cost there, but there are some dogs, and again, hounds are pretty consistent. Labs are pretty consistent, but like to give you an example, Bernese Mountain Dogs, I might have a female that will ovulate on day 2 this cycle, and the next cycle day 14. That's the difference between 10 puppies.
Right.
I mean, and so even though hounds generally don't have that problem, that doesn't mean you're not going to have that one that does.
Right.
So if you have a female that doesn't seem to be catching or does not seem to be having large litters, that doesn't necessarily mean she's not a good mom. It just could be that you're catching on the wrong day.
Gotcha.
Your timing on litter size is going to be more of a factor than anything nutritionally.
Right. Yeah. I know most people are saying that, like that day 9, day 10, and you ask everybody, they're going to tell you a different day.
Yeah.
But like you said, every dog
it can't be different for every dog.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, I usually try to hit around that 9 or 10 day mark, and I look for the signs. A lot of people don't understand what some of the signs are when they are ready. Like a dog. I've had people, Brandon Wisdom actually taught me this. He asked me, is the dog flagging? And when he asked me that, I had no idea what the heck he meant when he said flagging. And he's like, if you got another dog go up to her, does her tail go down or does her tail go up? If her tail stays up, that means she wants it and she's ready. She's flagging. And I was like, damn, I've never thought about that concept that she's flagging. Like, yep, come on, I'm ready. That kind of thing. Yeah, come on, I'm ready. That's just to help. Maybe that right there will help a lot of people through that process of understanding. Okay, yep, my bitch is ready right now. It's time to go take her to whatever I'm taking her to.
Yeah.
All right.
So now we got the female bred. Now what do we do?
Yep.
Notice we've been talking for 13 minutes now, and we still haven't got the puppies.
Right. Right.
So we got the female bred. Pivotal time for that female is day 35. Day 35 is whenever her cells or her puppies go from cells to embryos. Her calorie requirement is going to triple in that week.
Right.
That's where we want to be changing dog foods. Okay. And we're not going to, this isn't a dog food podcast, but you want to be getting a better quality feed that's more calorie dense at that point in time, especially if you're feeding a lower quality adult dog food, because her calorie requirement is going to triple on that 35th day. So if she had to eat 1,000 calories a day, now she has to eat 3,000 calories a day, plus she has a belly full of pups. If you don't have a really calorie dense feed, she physically might not have enough room.
Right.
And then coming back to the essential dog, I know a lot of guys like to make up by feeding raw meat or yogurt or whatever, and that's fine, but make sure you're mixing the essential dog in, because again, we want those vitamins and minerals to be balanced. If we're just throwing them raw calories, we need to make sure that those vitamins and minerals are balancing with those raw calories. Otherwise, there's going to be a mineral or a vitamin deficiency in that female. And again, those minerals and vitamins are just as important for those puppies as those extra calories are.
Makes sense. Makes 100% sense.
So also on that day 35, there's a couple things that I 100% recommend, and there's a couple things that we'll throw out where we have a specific situation. One, if you have not wormed your dog yet, you can worm your dog with Remove while they are pregnant.
Perfect. I know that's been a question I've gotten asked a lot of times is, where does the Remove not be able to be used as far as pregnant bitches and puppies?
Remove can be, and obviously with the puppies, you got to, they got to be weaned before you're mixing it with the food, but you can put the Remove into like a paste for them or something like that.
Gotcha.
The other thing that we can do is if you have a female that has had difficult whelping in the past, where it's taken 12 hours or 13 hours or whatever. If any of your guys are breeding other breeds of dogs that would be a big-headed dog that are prone to C-sections, we have a product called Red Raspberry that will make the uterus more elastic. So a lot of cases, like French Bulldog breeders, Pug breeders, they've cut down on their C-sections by 90% because that uterus is more elastic. An English Bulldog breeder, it's always going to be a C-section. They're just not naturally a normal dog.
Right.
In your guys' hounds, that's typically not going to be a case unless you have a female that's really prone to having C-sections. But where I see more of it is you have a female that just has a very difficult delivery where it takes too long. That making that uterus more elastic, that will make that whelping process last the 4 hours that it's supposed to be and just help you get to bed a little bit sooner whenever that time does.
Right. I've got a buddy that's got a brood gyp that he said it takes him sometimes. I think he's had one pregnancy go like 12 hours before. Like it was just a stupid long amount of time, and that right there would have been perfect for her, benefit as well.
Yeah.
And that, you talk about big sized dogs, a lot of times these gyps that we have in this sport are really a lot of smaller frame gyps. It's hard to find a big frame gyp, but it's easy to find a big frame male dog.
Yeah.
So a lot of times these stud dogs going through these little bitty frames, you get some big puppies coming out of these little dogs. So that would be a big help with that.
Yep. And then the other thing you can start doing is at day 35. And this is one that a lot of hound guys don't really pay attention to the way a puppy breeder does, is your Giardia and Coccidia. So the Happy Dog Plus will create an environment where, first of all of your females have Coccidia.
Right.
Every adult dog has Coccidia. They're immune to it, but the puppies are not. So you're going to have Coccidia. Giardia is something that you shouldn't have, but it does happen, and it happens more often in the south than it does in the north, and it happens more often in a non-sterile environment than not. And some of you guys have absolutely gorgeous kennels, but some of you guys do not. So that's where when you're in that situation, Giardia. And even if you're not worried about selling it, why it's a big concern for the puppy breeder is they sell that puppy, it goes back, and it tests positive for Giardia. The pet vets make it out to be the bubonic plague, and now we have to pay for vet treatments. You guys aren't doing that, but you're getting diarrhea from the Giardia still. You still have a puppy from the Giardia still. So don't say that you're not concerned about Giardia, because it will cause unhealthy puppies too. So our Giardia treatment, you can do one of two things. You can start putting the Happy Dog Plus to the female at day 35.
Okay, yep.
And that will go through the placenta to the puppy, and then it will go through the milk to the puppy.
Gotcha.
Or we do have it in a paste, too. And in that paste, you want to give it to the puppies on day 3, every 3 days for 3 weeks. And that will create an environment where the Giardia is not reproducing, repopulating, and you still going to want to use metronidazole or fenbendazole or tetrazole, something like that, to do a kill at 6 to 7 weeks. But when you do that kill, you're not going to get a big die-off. And that's where a lot of my pet breeders run into problems, because they're doing that treatment, but they're still dying off, and then they get a false positive test.
Right.
Again, that's not the case for you guys, but same thing for you guys. You're not going to have diarrhea for the first 7 weeks of the puppy's life either. You're going to have a healthier puppy because of that. So that's where the Happy Dog Plus comes in.
And and then also too, just talk about the paste. I think we mentioned it in the last episode as well. It'll be good to mention on this one. There is instructions on the side of the Happy Dog Plus powder to make
it into a paste if you don't want to buy the pre-packaged paste as well. Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So, you do have that.
But it's something you can give to the puppies at birth. It's not something that you have to be concerned about what that timing is.
Gotcha.
We got through that 35 days. Now, the other 7 days before whelping.
Okay.
We want to start them on rebalance.
Okay.
We want to leave them on rebalance until 7 days after whelping.
Gotcha.
The reason for that is rebalance. We do not have to worry about bacteria resistance. So we can use it as a preventative.
Gotcha.
Use it 7 days before whelping to 7 days after whelping. You will never have to worry about mastitis or uterine infection again.
Yep, and I see it's also good. Go ahead.
Whereas traditionally, you get mastitis, then you call the vet, you get the penicillin, you already have it. By the time you're treating it, now we already got bad milk. Whereas with rebalance, we take care of it before it even happens.
Right. And I see you got on there too that's also good for C-section. If a dog ends up having to have a section.
You want to do about 10 days after post C-section, 10 days to help make sure that we're not getting any infection.
Right, like you said, it's a big infection fighter. That's pretty much what the rebalance is.
Yep. So that's 7 days before, 7 days after. That's 14 days. So you're going to be talking on a 40-pound jip. You're going to be talking 8. You're going to be talking maybe a quarter bottle of rebalance. So you're talking about $15. You never have to have mastitis again.
Right.
That's a win.
Yep.
Yep.
I know, and you bring up a great point too, and this is something I want to touch on. It's a weird spot to touch on this, but I know a lot of the guys that have asked me a lot of questions about the products will look at the products as a whole, but that breakdown, when you break it down to those points, it's like, man, you're only spending this little bit to protect you against all of this. Like when you break it down to one dog, like you just said with the rebalance, it's like for a pregnant jip, you're going to use like a half a bottle.
Well, bottles. I mean, and this is something that a lot of guys in the hound world don't understand. Like, there's a lot of guys I talk to that have come to expect that they're going to lose a couple puppies out of every litter.
Yeah, it's almost like a guarantee.
Guys that breed dogs for a living will breed. They'll have 300 puppies in a year and have 98% survival rate. Like, they don't lose puppies in a litter. And that's because they're putting together protocol. And, obviously I'm talking about elite stuff here, but I'm also, I'm talking about other stuff too, and we're going to get into some more stuff. If you follow a good kennel management program, you're not going to have dead puppies. Right.
All right. So what is the next step?
So all right, what's now we're to the whelping process.
Yes.
All right. So the female's whelping. One thing that, and this is something that not everybody's going to do, but again, calcium forces those contractions. We have a product called our Canine Calcium. It is a paste that you give to that bitch as soon as her temperature spikes, which is when she starts to pant. Then give it to her every half hour or in between each puppies. That's going to make sure she has enough calcium that those contractions are happening when you don't have that pup getting hung up in there, and you don't have that 12-hour whelping process. It's going to speed it up. Again, most hounds are good whelpers, but at the same time, it's handy to have if you have a problem. There's some old timers that will use oxytocin, and you better get it right, because you can also kill your female, if you give too much oxytocin. You can give them all the calcium paste in the world, and they're not going to overdose from it. There are other calcium paste on the market that guys may have used in the past. What I really like about ours is it tastes good and they like it. A lot of the other ones are bitter and they spit it back out at you, and you feel like you're wasting your money. Right. That is one. The other thing is, a lot of times you'll have a female after whelping that will get almost like she has a seizure. She gets real jittery or whatever. That's normally a sign of calcium deficiency. Hit her with calcium paste immediately, and you'll get her through that. That's a lot of times guys, they think that they're having a seizure, and really they are, but it's not because of a typical cause for a seizure. It's because they just lost too much calcium in that whelping process.
And I see also in here too, it does have a little bit of that red raspberry.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's an extra.
That is a beneficial to make the uterus more elastic, but it also is what makes it taste good too.
Gotcha. Beautiful. Yeah, I see. All right, so what would be?
So now we got the pups on the ground.
Yep, pups on the ground.
All right. So one, you guys should all have one of them little bubble bowl thingies or whatever to suck all the mucus and everything out of the nostrils and everything else like that. If you don't, they're like 50 cents. Go get yourself one.
Right. Look in the child section. Yeah, the baby section.
Make sure if your mama's not a good mama or a new mama, make sure that she got the umbilical where she was supposed to. If you got the umbilical too close, this is one, we do have a product and it's labeled for horses, but we have a product called Dry Out.
Okay. Yeah, I seen that earlier.
That will dry out that navel and prevent a hernia if she gets too close. The other thing that Dry Out, and I forgot to mention before, is an off-use product. It is a wonderful septic. So if you get bleeding ears, it will stop blood like right now.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Man, that would be, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah, I forgot the world that I was talking to because, like I get with bleeding ears, it will stop them almost instantaneously.
I was going to say, there has been so many times, I mean, a thorn, you know, a big stick, something, you just grab an ear wrong, and it looks like a murder scene has happened.
Absolutely.
You're like, oh, God. What has happened to my dog? Then you get him back, and it's the ear's cut on the end. It's like, oh, okay, all right.
But
and of course, the dogs are too damn crazy. They just all they want to do is shake it off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it's like
you ever
let it heal.
Tongue?
Yes.
That's a nightmare.
Yes. That is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. That would be, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. I'm going to have to get some of that just for that purpose, to have on the back burner.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. So,
one of those ones like recovery, you hope you don't need to use, but it's nice to have when you do.
Just to have it. Yeah. Yep. Even if you just stop the bleeding. That's, yeah. So, all right. So we're
got the
going through the counts.
Mama did her job. We got the navel. Yep. We got the umbilical cord cut. Now, and we got the rebalance into mama, so the placenta's going to pass and everything, and we're all good there because we know we don't have infection because we're using the rebalance. Now as soon as those pups are born, we want to give them a little dime-sized drop on their tongue of our ASAP paste. Okay. That's one that I would not breed a litter of dogs without our ASAP. That is a colostrum-based paste with natural antibodies. Doesn't mean we avoid or don't do any vaccinations. It's going to boost up that immune system. It's going to get them suckling right away. It is our ASAP paste to get all puppies started off right is wonderful. If you've got one that is not thriving, pick up the paste, give it to them more often. We've actually kept puppies alive for 24 hours without milk just on our ASAP paste alone. Wow. If you got a runt, start giving them ASAP paste. It will, in no time, you will notice that pup is turning around. Other thing we want to talk about is your whelping box and the temperature of that whelping box.
Yep.
We want that temperature to be right around 95 to 100 degrees. We do not want it to be colder because if it's too cold, we're going to get fatty liver disease and we're going to have a bunch of dead puppies. If it's too hot, we're going to cook them. So we want that, you know.
That's where that magic number's at.
You know, they do it in straw or whatever, but you want between 95 and 98 degrees is where we want that whelping box, that temperature to be. Those heating blankets work really, really good. Like they sell whelping blankets. I mean, buy really nice whelping boxes from some of the, guys that do the dog breeding seminars. They are all about those fancy, and they're absolutely gorgeous, but you don't have to necessarily do that all the time.
Right.
You want to keep that temperature right.
Perfect.
And that temperature probably will cause more long-term problems than what people realize.
Gotcha.
As far as having dead puppies by the time they come to term and get past that 8-week period of time.
Right. And I noticed something too with the ASAP. It's the natural antibodies from dried egg.
Yes, so what those are inoculated eggs.
Okay.
With those viruses, and they inoculate. So it's like a vaccine, and that's
okay.
into there. It's again, I'm not saying you want to avoid vaccination, but it's boosting up that immune system. And colostrum is what they get from mama's milk as soon as they're born. That's all those natural antibodies that they get from mama. And there's a lot of products on the market that will use dried whey as a source of colostrum, but it is not actual colostrum. This is actual colostrum. And I've had puppies that guys have picked up and thought they were dead, saw it toe wiggle, hit them with a shot of ASAP in 15 minutes. They don't know which puppy they thought was.
No kidding.
It works. Unbelievable.
Daggone.
That same product, when I was a kid, used to run into a lot of 4-H lambs and stuff like that whenever I was a younger man. And if we had a down lamb, we thought we had a dead lamb. I mean, our ASAP tubes, I've hundreds and hundreds of cases, they'll bring back down lambs, which if it's working on a down lamb, it's going to work on a puppy because
and I wonder if they're getting, from that dried egg. I don't know the whole entire process of that, what they're going to absorb from that dried egg, but egg is such a great source of protein too for puppies. A lot of guys will take an egg and crack over, once they start eating food, they'll crack over. So I'm sure they're probably getting some of that protein build
a little from. I don't think that's a big part of it. The biggest thing is colostrum to increase the absorption, getting and boosting that immune system to help them get started off on the right track.
Gotcha.
Now we got the pups doing that. We got the pups nursing, we hope. Now, if mama does not have enough milk, that's where our lactate comes in.
Yeah.
Our lactate is using fenugreek and blessed thistle, and within 25 minutes she will be dripping. If her sac is not full, she will be dripping within 25 minutes. Do not give it to her before whelping, or you will lose all of her colostrum because she'll be dripping before the pups are born.
Gotcha.
It comes in a powder or a paste.
Okay.
And you can mix the powder into a paste. It's just simply the delivery mechanism. I sell a lot of the paste to the toy breed people.
Okay.
Because the pups, if you're mixing it with the food, they don't eat enough food to get enough dose to actually make it effective. With a bigger dog, they're eating enough food to make it effective. So anyhow, that lactate will make them drip. So now we got the other thing with the lactate, I think, is if you have a dog that has an abnormally large litter, you can give them, even if she has milk, give her the lactate to make sure she has enough milk for those 12 puppies or whatever a large litter size is for that female.
Yeah. So, with that too, I was just thinking with the powder form, obviously you're going to put it on top of the food, and, good mamas will eat what they need to eat, go take care of the puppies, they'll come back, eat more later. But when puppies start getting bigger, they're going to start venturing over to that bowl. Will having that lactate powder in there hurt the puppies in any kind of way?
No.
Did not figure.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, probably actually just be a benefit to them, honestly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you got, so we get through that, we got that part done. Day 3 is when we can start on the Giardia treatment if we're going to use the paste.
Okay.
And then let's talk vaccines a little bit.
Yes.
So if you guys are keeping a typical 5-way is absolutely fine.
Right.
You give it to them at 6 weeks, give it to them at 9 or 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and then the third one at 12 weeks, you're fine.
Yes.
If you are selling puppies, do not rely on the person that you're selling that puppy to follow through with their vaccinations. You want to 100% know that you are selling a
fully vaccinated puppy. Yep.
And with that being said, you can now buy a 2-way that you can give it 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
And then you do again at 6 weeks, or do it again at 5 weeks, and then do it again at 7 weeks. So now you got all 3 vaccinations as it's labeled for parvo before that female or before that puppy is gone.
I don't think I realized that they made a 2-way.
Yeah, it's brand new. The other thing is they have, and it's labeled for 3 weeks. The other thing is out there, and this has been out, Dr. Um, oh, for crying out. Dr. Page from Redden, Tennessee. In the 1980s, he's a bird dog man. He's a veterinarian. He's the man that invented the parvo vaccine. He saved the dog breeding world in the 80s because parvo was going rampant. Right. He has a product called Neopar that you give it at week 6, you give it at week 5, you give it at week 7, and that titer on that one is stronger. So you only need 2 of Neopar to be fully inoculated for parvo. Gotcha. Most of my commercial breeders are using Neopar. Now with that, you need the Neopar, which is the Parvovax, and then the Neovac, which takes care of your distemper. Like it does the other 4, if you will, that the typical 5-way does. But that, because the titer is stronger, you do 2 doses of that and they're done.
Right.
Parvo is a big thing. It still exists. When you are cleaning your kennels, this is one of the things. Make sure whatever you clean your kennels with says it will kill parvo. Oxine is a product out there that I recommend, but there are others that I recommend too that I just can't remember all the names. There's a bunch of them. But make sure you're buying that gallon jug or whatever you're buying and make sure it says it will kill parvo. Bleach will not kill parvo. Bleach will not kill viruses. Bleach is an antibacterial. I don't want to repeat this over and over again, but I have too many kennels that say, well, I use bleach. That does not mean you don't have parvo. The other thing that parvo, that oxine will do is it will kill your giardia. So, you know what I mean? You're covering more than one thing.
Right. And another big one that is, especially in our world, with people taking to, and we've touched on this back in an old episode I did with Mr. Ben Gaskins, but he is one that is a diehard about this, and this is the Bordetella vaccine. Mm-hmm. Good Lord! I mean, it's not that much. You can get a tray of the Bordetella vaccine for like $70. And you could do just an ungodly amount of dogs, and that prevents kennel cough. Mm-hmm. And it, just a couple different other things too, but that's one of the big ones. Is it prevents the kennel cough? And kennel cough will spread like wildfire. And you talk about putting a breaking pin in a tough spot. I don't know how much other dog sports use, trainers or breaking pins or breaking, trainers, however you want to call it. But
as far as wildfire, because you got all those other dogs introduced.
I mean, you're talking about.
You're 100%. You could do that vaccine, and for those knuckleheads that don't, that's where you make sure you have your dog on Happy Dog Plus before you go, because that will build up the dog's immunity. Right. And this is one we forgot to mention, is our Restore.
I was just looking at that one.
Our Rebalance, but stronger. It has the colloidal silver in it. Okay. So we're going to use that. I use the Rebalance to fight infections that are contained to that one animal. I'm going to use the Restore for things that are going to be contagious. Like it will clean up kennel cough in a matter of 5 days.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm using the Restore to stop it from spreading. Any kind of snotty noses, any kind of kennel cough, respiratory things, that's where I'm going to use the Restore. The other place I use Restore is, say we got a dog that just isn't acting 100%. Maybe it was just recently diagnosed with a tick-borne disease, but you haven't been able to go through the whole treatment yet. Maybe it's got a runny nose, snotty nose, or whatever, but you got a big event coming up. Use that Restore 2 days before the trial, and then during the trial, give it to that dog every 6 hours around the clock. That will be, if it's a tick-borne disease, it's not going to get rid of the tick-borne disease like our treatment is, but it's going to knock those cobwebs off enough that dog's still going to perform while you need it to perform for that particular event.
Makes sense.
That it works really. In fact, I was out at Super Stakes last fall, Super Stakes, and there was a girl out there. Her dog just got diagnosed with tick-borne disease. Hasn't started any treatment yet.
Right.
They all say it's standing on their head. I've never seen a dog stand on their head yet. It was literally falling behind her, not doing anything.
Yes.
she did that restore round. She doubled up the next night, made it in the semifinals.
Get right.
Yeah, I mean,
get right.
Yeah. So it's.
I'm telling you, the stuff works. The stuff works.
Yeah.
And one more product I do see, and you may have some other ones that I'm missing. But the Serene Dog. Mm-hmm. I see you have it labeled as times of stress, and helps with post C-sections. Not only
it's gonna help that mama if she's stressed out post C-section,
right.
just to calm down. That's the dog.
Right.
That's the one that's ideal for the dogs that are scared of thunderstorms or fireworks,
yes.
or whatever the case might be, traveling cars, whatever. But no, it is a great product. I even have some guys that will do it for over aggressive dogs because it doesn't take energy away. I mean, we give it the horse product version of that to race horses coming out of the starting blocks because it takes away that anxiety.
Yeah, the zoomies, yeah,
whatever. So I have some guys that are using it for dogs that are really aggressive on a tree, or your guys that might have dogs that are just aggressive with other dogs. It kind of just gets rid of that anxiety type of situation.
Interesting. Interesting.
Back to the female. So now we whelped, we have the puppies, we got the milk flowing, we got the vaccinations taken care of. If we got any off-feed situations, whelping is a very stressful situation, and also as the pups are weaning, that's stressful on them. That's where our GI equalizer comes in. Any off-feed situations, use that GI equalizer. We'll get them back onto feed. It will help the pups with weaning. That also is one every one of you guys should be having in your dog in your vest or your dog box whenever you're traveling. Give it to them before you put them in the box. Give it to them out of there. Get out of the box. Everybody says, "Do your dogs travel well?" And I get, "Yeah, they travel fine." And then they come back, "Well, my dog isn't eating. My dog isn't."
Yep.
Well, it's because you just carted them 500 miles and introduced them to 1,000 new dogs, and you think that's normal. He got a really upset stomach. That's where the Serene Dog for the anxiety, but also for the upset stomach, the GI equalizer. The GI equalizer also is for the pet dogs or even your dogs that, why is my dog eating grass? Because he has an upset stomach. Give him a shot of GI. Why is my dog eating his own poop? Because there's something wrong with his gut, and he's trying to get something. Give him a shot of GI. And especially with the poop thing or the stool thing, do it quick because it will become just a bad habit, and they'll do it just for the sake of doing it, even if they don't have an upset stomach after that.
Yeah. And you make it so. Here's where I found that is really good. Like you said, the travel situation. Mm-hmm. This would be really good for our one-day hunters. Yeah. Our one-day guys that go out there and they're going to travel to a pen 2.5 hours away to go and show up an hour before cast, run their dogs, and then come put them back in the truck and drive 2.5 hours back home. Mm-hmm. I noticed that I went to a one-day hunt earlier this year, and that's exactly what I did. When before I got in the truck, as I was loading them up, I gave them a dose. When I drove the 2 hours down to the pen and unloaded them in the pen, and in the kennel before cast, I gave them a shot again as I unloaded them. Mm-hmm. And not a single dog, and y'all can test this out. The next time if you're listening, next time you go out to a one-day hunt, when you unload your dogs and put them in the kennel, put your ear up against their stomach. I bet if you take 5 dogs, I bet at least 3 of them you can hear their stomachs churning. Mm-hmm. You're more than likely going to hear that that sound like they're hungry or sound like their stomach's upset, gurgle. When I did that GI equalizer to them dogs, not a single stomach was making noise. The dogs they weren't upset. When they did use the bathroom, it was normal, solid, passings. It wasn't diarrhea. It wasn't really loose stools that you get a lot of time from those travels. The dogs didn't crap in the box. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff. Exactly. It did such a great job. And that's one product that is a instant turn. And I even tested it out one time. I gave my dogs, I'd fed my dogs, and I was working them on the bench, just practicing with them. And I listened to one of my dog's guts, and it was churning. I'm like, okay. So I said, I'm gonna test this stuff out. I hit him with a shot of the GI equalizer. I put him back in the kennel. I practiced showing with the next dog. I went back to the other dog, and I put my ear on his stomach, and not a single noise.
You do bench shows too.
Yeah, we do bench shows.
I knew hunters, the fox hunters did. I didn't know you did too. That's another thing
Yes.
too on the already, because that tea
Yep.
tree oil that will work better than show sheen.
Oh no! Yeah. You know, when you said that earlier, I got to thinking about that, and I didn't quite mention it, but I thought that might be a little trick in the book right there.
Yeah. So anyway, so we did all that. We did vaccinations, worming regimens.
Yes.
You can use remove on your puppies.
Okay.
If you are keeping your puppies, you can use remove straight through, no issues. If you're planning on selling your puppies, do not use Elite Nutrition's Canine Remove, because the next guy's vet isn't going to know what Elite Nutrition's Canine Remove is, and he's going to act like that dog isn't wormed, and then you're going to have all kinds of issues, because if he has, if that dog develops worms, it's going to be your fault. So
gotcha.
In that case, and this is the other, keep records of when you do this stuff, guys. So you can hand that off to the owner and keep records yourself. So if you have problems down the road, you have proof that guy's full of it. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you know that you did Neopar or Neovac on week 5 and week 7, you know your dog does not have parvo.
Right.
You don't have to come back and pay. You know what I mean? You don't have to pay for vet bills, any of that. Keep good records.
Keep good records, right.
If it's for your own use, whatever, it's no big deal. It's also a big deal for your own use, too, so you just know what's going on with your own dogs.
Yep.
There's a reason a guy puts that little sticker on your windshield when you get an oil change, because
that's right.
If we didn't write it down.
Exactly. I'm a huge record person.
Yeah.
Huge record person. I know the exact date all my gyps come in heat. I know when something's not right if they're missing a cycle.
Yeah.
It's little as stuff as that right there. Keeping records, and like you said, it covers your butt too.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, and I tell people all the freaking time on all different situations, anything to do with hounds. You have a phone with a freaking camera on it that has a time clock stamp when you take the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Take the damn picture. Just take a picture. When you're giving the shot, take a picture.
Yep.
When you're giving the wormer, take a picture.
Yep.
This way, when you get asked, like, hey, did you do this? Yep, sure did. Look, it's on my phone right here. There you go. Now, what more do you want?
Vaccines, too, another thing I just thought of. You're going to have some guys that will say, well, that those puppies are going to be immune to parvo for the first 6 weeks because of mama. Mm-hmm. And you're 100% right. The problem is when you're doing the vaccinations, you need that titer to be right. So by the time you treat it, by the time that pup leaves at 8 weeks, you know it's fully vaccinated and it cannot develop parvo.
That makes sense.
The reason we're starting at 2 weeks or at 5 weeks, depending on which protocol you follow, isn't because that pup doesn't have mama's natural immunity at that point. It's because we got to get enough vaccinations into them so that we know when that puppy's leaving that there is 100% no chance that dog's going to have parvo at the next place.
Right.
And that's
right.
It's a prevention for you and a protection for you to make sure that you know that you're selling a parvo-free dog. Because I promise you, even in the hound world, you tell them, you got a not completely vaccinated puppy, and hound people are just like pet people in some regards. They're going to take it and show it to their buddies. They're going to introduce it to other dogs. They might not take it to the dog park, but they're going to be exposing it to parvo in places where they shouldn't be.
Right.
And that's why we want to make sure we got that titer right to where we know that when that pup's leaving, we're 100% parvo free.
Right.
Not because it doesn't have mom's natural immunity at 2 weeks or 5 weeks, but because we want to make sure by the time at 8 weeks, there's no chance at all of that dog having parvo.
Agreed.
So back to the worming regimen, Safeguard, Panicure. You can use the goat stuff. You can use the cow stuff. Does not matter. You can use ivermectin. Right. Just know that if you do ivermectin, do the right dose, because I've talked to a lot of guys that have killed their dogs because they overdosed their dogs on ivermectin. That's why Safeguard, Panicure, Fenbendazole, they're nice because you're not going to kill your dogs.
You can't overdose it with that.
You can't overdose it. So that's one thing. Just keep in mind with the ivermectin. I don't really like using ivermectin for puppies because you can make a mistake.
Yes, very easily.
It'll work, but you can make the mistake. And then at that week 7 is when we want to hit with the fenbendazole, the tetrazzerol, or the metronidazole to take care of any Giardia and coccidia.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Albon is a product that's out there. Albon works great on coccidia. I found it does not work very well on Giardia. It seems like a lot of, maybe in some situations it does, but a lot of my kennels, it's like the Giardia's almost become immune to the Albon.
Gotcha.
So we're using one of the fenbendazole tetrazerol, which tetrazerol is a horse product that you can use off-label, or if you go to that vet that Neotech, the vet that does the part, they actually are a compounding pharmacy that can make you tetrazerol for dogs. But again, just pay attention if you're using off-label stuff for horses, especially for puppies, that you're getting your dose right.
Gotcha. Understood.
Right.
And, one more thing too on the wormer too. And I see a lot of people talking about the diatomaceous earth. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but that diatomaceous earth, also another benefit of it, and maybe even might be the main benefit of it, is after it passes through the dog and it gets on the ground, it does work on the ground as well, correct?
Correct.
As far as trying to keep worms and stuff out of the ground.
Flies and stuff like that. Now, the diatomaceous earth will not take care of tapeworm, whipworm, and hookworm. That's why our remove has podarco and reed sage peat in it to make it effective. The podarco is the same active ingredient that we're using in the rebalance.
Gotcha.
So, or one of the same active ingredients that we're using in rebalance. So, the diatomaceous earth is not going to take care. And down south, you guys tend to get a lot more worms than what we do up here. So, like, diatomaceous earth is a great preventative, but it is not going to take care of those three: the whips, the hooks, and the tapes.
Gotcha. And I see a lot of people, I know the guy in Texas, that we talk about all the time. He's had a lot of backlash, and I see a lot of backlash on the wormer of, why don't you just go to the Tractor Supply and buy just straight up diatomaceous earth and just give them that? It always works for me. So I'm glad that you kind of clarified that and said that, like, just giving diatomaceous earth is not going to worm your dogs correctly. Yeah. That's not how that works.
Take care of all of them, especially for you guys down south.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. So,
so we got that done. We got wormers done. We got, I think, pretty much. We got health all the way now. The only other thing I would say is after your bitch gets done, hit her with a 9-way. Vaccinate them as soon as they're done with the puppies. That way, they're vaccinated for the next year.
That makes sense.
9-way is not that much more expensive than the 5-way, so take care of the lepto. Because it's easy peasy, get it taken care of, and lepto is prevalent in a lot of states. You don't need that bitch going blind because she got lepto.
Right. Exactly.
That's a good sign of whenever that she gets done with those pups. Hit her with her vaccinations once a year to make sure that she's fully vaccinated as well.
Perfect.
I can't think. You got the book in front of you. I don't have the book in front of me.
I was just scrolling through, and I don't see anything else on there. I think between, last episode, the first episode, and, this one, I think we've pretty much hit everything.
Yeah.
Yep, I think we've pretty much covered them all. So, one thing, I want to make sure I don't have to go back and add this time,
no.
to get any of these
No, and I'm glad you spent the time to go through that because, again, not everybody that's going to listen to this breeds dogs. But the one thing I will tell you is that for those guys that do, it's frustrating to me because, you might have a guy that taught you or whatever, but it isn't a business for the houndsmen nearly as much as it is for the guys who raise. And there's a lot of knowledge that those guys have figured. You shouldn't be using puppies on every litter.
Right.
We can make sure that those puppies are healthy.
Yes.
That's another place where the rebalancer or the restore comes in handy. If those puppies start to get sick, hit them with the restore, snotty noses, whatever, rebalance. If they get a navel infection, those can be nasty. Start hitting them with the rebalance every 2 hours around the clock, and it will take care of that navel infection.
Nice.
Those are things, and a lot of people, I get a lot of calls, believe it or not, on that calcium situation where dogs have seizures. And they don't even know what it is, and a lot of times it's that calcium deficiency.
Yeah. And I think one of the big ones I hear is the mama's not having enough in the milk. I think that lactate ought to be a big saver with a lot of our guys. And
that a lot of times, too, comes back to that dog's nutrition. If you guys are not feeding a good quality dog food and you're not using the essential dog or whatever, she's pulling so much calcium during the whelping process. She doesn't have any calcium left to produce milk because she just pulled every ounce of calcium in her body to have those puppies. And that's where, again, I know dog food is expensive, but whenever you're breeding a female, that dog food is, even if you're only getting $100 a pup, you can afford to spend a little bit more money because you're getting $500 for those 5 pups. You know what I mean? And good. Hopefully you're one of those guys that's getting $2,500 for a pup, and then you can buy. You know what I mean? It makes it easy peasy. But
gosh, that would be nice.
But I had a guy in the height of COVID that had French bulldogs. He was getting $4,500 a piece for them. And he was going through the whole thing, but he called me up. He had issues going on, and I called him back the next day, see how the puppies were, and he said they all died. I said, "Did you try what he did?" And he said, "No, I had hay on the ground. I was worried about it getting wet." So he let $50,000 worth of dogs die to go put up a couple $100 bill of hay. Get your priorities straight.
Right. I think that hay would have just had to sit exactly where it was.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. All right, everybody. On this episode, we're going to take a few seconds and actually bring back the Around the Howl. There was something that definitely stood out here. This is straight for my North Carolina people and surrounding. Honestly, this is where houndsmen need to join together. And I don't have all the information on the bill right here in front of me, but I do know that it's a big deal with the North Carolina Department of Game, and it's getting to the House. So I'm going to read straight from this. I'm piggybacking this off the North Carolina Bear Hunters Association page on Facebook. If you want to go on there and check this out and learn more about it, that's a great place to start. They got a lot of information on there. It says, good morning or good afternoon, bear hunters. And this is, when you're hearing this, it's going to be yesterday evening when this was posted. Unfortunately, this message is not a happy announcement about stopping the Senate Bill 220. During the meetings with the NC House today, we discovered that the NC Wildlife Resource lobbyist had requested a meeting with the NC House Speaker, Destin Hall, to discuss what to do next with Senate Bill 220. Seems like the sources are pretty confident. They're going to ask the bill out of the House Rules Committee and amend the bill in the committee, then send it to the House Wildlife or Agricultural Committees. Pretty much, in layman's terms, they're trying to move this bill forward. And I wish I would have done a little bit more digging and had it right here in front of me. But I know it's going to be a big conflict if this bill does pass between landowners in all aspects and houndsmen in North Carolina. So the meeting with Speaker Hall is scheduled for 2 p.m. June 11th, which, when this drops, that is today. So if you're listening before 2 p.m., you need to be calling. There's 6 lines that you need to be calling. And you need to go check the post out if you need to look at them. It's the NC Bear Hunters page. It's going to be one of the top posts on there. You need to be calling the House Speaker, Destin Hall, the Rules Chairman, John Bell, Vice Chair, Brendan Jones, Senior Chairman, Jimmy Dixon, Majority Whip, Carl Gillespie, and the Wildlife Chairman, Ben Moss. Be sure to tell them to leave Senate Bill 220 in the House Rules Committee and do not move it out, and just let the amendment die. So, especially my NC guys listening and maybe surrounding guys, be sure to tune in and do that. Reach out. I'm going to try to take some time tomorrow myself and call. If anything, go on. I'm sure you can find these guys' emails online somewhere with the government pages and see if you can email them if just something to help, guys. But I hope that North Carolina has the best luck with that tomorrow and to get this thing beat. So All right, that's all I have for this episode on Around the House. Sorry, it's been a little while since we were able to do one of those. And we're going to move into the Spotlight presented by Cajun Lights. Here we go. All right, on this episode of the Spotlight presented by Cajun Lights, we're going to hit two things real quick. There's only two hunts that I saw this past weekend. The Grassy Branch 2-day was this past weekend again. Man, I want to get down there some kind of fierce. I do see they're having the Rumble in the Jungle, and I really hope that I can make that happen, honestly. I really do. I really want to go down there. If you haven't been to Grassy Branch, look, you want to go to a facility where you just feel welcomed the entire time that you're down there and have top-notch running, beautiful kennels, beautiful facilities. I mean, just a beautiful place. And I promise you, if you do go, when you get on the little sand road to go down to the pen, just keep going. You will run into it, I promise you. It may feel like you take 10 hours to get back there, but I promise you, you'll get there. No, I'm just joking, guys. It's a beautiful place. It's great running. The hospitality is top-notch, bar none. I've only been down there for one hunt, and ever since I've been begging to go back and just never been able to make it work. And maybe for this 3-day, I can try to get down there. But on this for this weekend, let's get back to that. The 2-day, they had their 2-day, so it was a derby hunt, and we're going to start with I did not see the bench show results on either one of the hunts again. So let's start with the best mouth, and that dog's name is Knight's Pickle Jar, and that dog's out of Hound Music Big Boy and McKeithen's Pearl from Full Send Kennels. You know, Full Send, I wanted that name. That was one of my big phrases I used to use back in the day. I wanted Full Send Kennels as my name, and somebody had to take it. Anyway, on to the classiest hound. That dog is Top Gun Hard Time out of GM's Buckeye and GM's Rain from Top Gun Kennels. Then, and that hound is called the Eastern Derby, by the way. I was completely brain farting on the name until I had to finally look at it. Let's see. And that Hard Time dog was also your combination winner. I did miss that. All right. And the winner of the Eastern Derby 2025 is a dog named Cooper. The dog's out of B&B's Chrome and McDowell's Faith from Spoon Fed Incorporated. Congratulations, guys, on y'all's win. And the other hunt was the Southern Diamond down at Tally-Ho Fox Preserve. Looks like a great hunt. And they did run the national GTP rules down there as well. And that changed the hunt. That 100% changed the hunt. I'm a big fan of GTP. Don't get me wrong. I love my hunting dogs. And that's a topic for another day. We're not going to get into that conversation right now. But this one I thought was pretty neat because in a HGA hunt, it would have been a different outcome. It would 100% have been a different outcome, not saying that one dog deserved it over the next. And I'm sure the owner of the Zero dog down there was probably begging for it to be an HGA hunt right now. But and the reason being there was trailing scores given out. And there was 2 trailing scores given out. The dog leading the trailing was actually in the speed and drive and in the endurance. So kind of sucks for them. So I'll give them an honorable mention right now. The would have been HGA champion is going to be A. Johnson's Patch out of Valentine's B. And oh, good God, how the heck do you say that name? Shorshowitz Juicy? From Andy Johnson. So, sorry, I'm going to give you the honorable mention for this hunt, guys. But let's go with the class. Let's go with the best mouth. The dog's name is Black Max, and that dog's out of Hound of the Year's Crisco's Pick, and Ray's Elvira C from Chris Thomas. The classiest hound was EHK's Blackberry from EHK's Cobra and EHK's Gypsy. Elgin Heat Kennels. Elgin Heat Kennels. Sorry. Terrible with names sometimes. Apologize for that. And the dual champion, combination winner, and field champion. And I told this guy if he keeps on doing this, I texted him. I said, if you keep on like this, they're going to kick you out of this country and not let you. They're not going to let you keep running these hunts. It is out of Virginia Breezes, Virginia Power. Champion K&J's Purple Rain. It is a Chapman dog. Champion Chapman Steady Rain from Pocket Change Kennels. And just a note, Boaz finished 5th. So, man, those guys are having such a good year. Such a good year. 2 years. I mean, they're on a run right now. When you're hot, you're hot. Congratulations, guys. Congratulations everybody that plays down there. And I wish everybody the best of luck. So let's get back to finish off our episode with Mr. Chip Kosher. Again, thank everybody for listening, and we're going to finish this up. Next week, we'll be back with some normal guests. All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for listening. But I think that's pretty much it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
Yeah,
you guys know where they can get the stuff.
Yep. Like I said, we can get y'all. Please go check out CajunLights.com. We still have our promotion code going on. That is HT Elite 10. Enter that at checkout. You get 10% off of all the Elite Nutrition products through Cajun Lights. That's my go-to source right there. So y'all be sure to check them out. And Chip, I appreciate you coming on.
If you guys have questions, do not hesitate. Give me a call. My phone number is 412-596-0264. Call me, leave me a message, text me. I do prefer a text over a Facebook Messenger, not because I don't know how to do Facebook Messenger, but because I flip back and forth between multiple pages. Facebook, and this didn't always happen, but nowadays, like if I'm on Elite's Messenger, I don't get my notifications on mine. Or if I'm on mine,
too many notifications
it's
going on
one of those
one
things
time.
that, like, every now and again, Facebook has a little hiccup and they screw stuff up. That's one that's been going on for about 9 months now that hasn't fixed. So a lot of times I'll get a Facebook message and I might miss it for a week because I don't realize I'm flipped on the wrong page. So if you don't get a response, send me a text. Again, that number's 412-596-0264.
And I'll give you credit too. I had a guy come up to me and he come up to me. He's like, man, you don't ever see it with companies. And he's like, I listened to your podcast. I heard the number. I was going to ask you a question and I knew you were busy. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go straight to the source. And he said he called you and you answered the phone right away and talked to him and answered all his questions. It was just as nice and friendly as he could ever ask for.
It doesn't happen where I answer right away all the time. Right. I do try to get back within 24 hours.
Yeah. But I can't remember if he said you answered right away or you called him back or whatever it was. It ended up he got a hold of you and he answered everything without hesitation. So hats off to you and I appreciate that a lot.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, that's not something you see all the time. So big shout out for you there. So did you have anything else before we end this thing up, man?
No, I appreciate what you guys are doing for us. I certainly appreciate LW taking care of all you guys in a timely manner. It's just I'm blessed to do a job that I love and I get to sell product that are helping people and helping dogs. And the other thing is it allows me I have my bird dogs, but it allows me to experience other dogs doing their jobs all the time without having quite so many expensive hobbies.
Right. But you get to live a little vicariously through other people.
Exactly right. It's like having the bear hunters and having the lion hunters, having the fox hunters. It's like having a friend with a boat.
That's right.
I don't want to own a damn boat, but I like going out on that boat every day.
Going on them. Yeah. That's right. Well, Chip, I surely do appreciate it. And everybody out there listening, like I said, be sure to check out CajunLights.com and onto your Elite Nutrition products. Get them with a 10% discount with the promo code HT Elite 10. That's HTELITE, the number 10. and then enter that at checkout, and you get 10% off. So we're going to go ahead and finish this one up, and I can't not thank y'all enough for listening. And like always, guys, happy hunting.